This interface shows a patient intake application locking up right at a critical moment. A loading screen spins continuously until an API request failed error abruptly halts the process. The frustrating part of this failure is that the application code is flawless. The servers are healthy and the logic checks out. The crash originates entirely within an invisible layer of underlying data. Normally, an engineer facing this starts a slow, manual forensic process. They open database consoles, blindly cross-reference table schemas, guess at upstream dependencies, and run tedious SQL queries just to find where the data shape changed. Engineering teams lose massive amounts of productive time navigating these invisible blind spots. Catalog removes that blindfold. It is an AI-powered conversational layer built directly on top of OpenMetadata. Instead of tabbing through disconnected database interfaces to hunt for a missing column, developers can now query their entire data ecosystem using plain English. You can search across tables, immediately profile row counts to see if a dataset dropped to 0, and inspect detailed schema data types to spot unexpected formatting changes, all from a single chat window. Adding this intelligence layer turns a static data warehouse into an active, real-time teammate that participates directly in the debugging process. Let's fix that patient intake error. We start the sprint by asking Catalog, show me the schema for the patient_intake table. A user's query hits the Next.js app router, passing to a task detection node. The request then enters a Gemini 2.0 flash tool loop. It executes a getTableSchema function, making a real-time API call to OpenMetadata for live table details. If your team is deep in a debugging session and hits an API quota limit, the system doesn't break. A multimodal fallback safety net automatically routes the request to Gemini 1.5 Flash to keep the answers flowing. This complex orchestration, parsing intent, selecting tools, calling APIs, and formatting the response happens invisibly in milliseconds, delivering the exact schema directly to the developer. Looking at the schema, the required columns exist, so we escalate. We ask the assistant, what are the data quality checks for the patient table? The AI instantly pulls the latest OpenMetadata test results, revealing a massive anomaly, a sudden 12% spike in null values for a critical downstream ID column. We know what broke, but not exactly where it originated. To find out, we ask the assistant to map the lineage graph for the patient intake table to trace those nulls back to their source. The lineage trace points directly to a specific upstream transformation pipeline that failed earlier that morning. That pipeline failure let the null value slip through, which eventually choked the application. Guided conversation pinpointed the root cause in seconds, turning a deep forensic investigation into a simple sequence of questions. Once the source is identified, the next step is ensuring the broader governance team can track and resolve the underlying issue. Without leaving the chat interface, we tell the assistant to log a formal data quality issue. The patient intake table has 12% null values. Using a built-in Notion API integration, the assistant automatically captures the context, formats the ticket, and pushes it directly into the engineering team's active Notion database. By logging issues directly from the chat, documentation stays synchronized with the actual debugging process, removing the friction of manual ticket creation. Setting this up requires minimal overhead. You only need Node.js 20, an active OpenMetadata instance, and a Gemini API key. The entire project is containerized right out of the box. It ships with a multi-stage Docker file running Node Alpine, pre-configured in Next.js for an optimal standalone output size. With a single command, you can deploy the application to Google Cloud Run, making it authenticated and production-ready in minutes. Deploying an intelligent data assistant is now as fast as using one. Engineering teams can stop digging through data and start interacting with their ecosystem.